So good afternoon. And I'm Lisa Smith, and I'm the past president of the Western chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture. And within the Western chapter, we have a variety of different committees, and these committees are all focused on different aspects of our work in arboriculture. And some are based on commercial arborists, others on utility arborists, some focus on marketing or membership. But today we're talking with consultants. And as a member of the consulting committee, we thought that it would be fun to do interviews with some of our consulting members. And so today we're having an interview with a friend and a colleague, Jonathan Flournoy. And so I just wanted to say hi to Jonathan. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, Lisa.
Thanks for being my guinea pig and allowing me to interview you. And just ask you some questions about your background and hear a little bit about your history. And I'm glad that you volunteered after I twisted your arm gently and letting me interview you because you're such a nice guy. And I think you can be really accessible to a lot of younger consultants who are exploring this avenue of work. So, welcome, Jonathan. And tell me a little bit about your background before you got into consulting. Where did you start?
Well, thank you for the kind words. So I started, consulting arboriculture is actually one of my first jobs out of college. I'd always wanted to do something in the environmental field. And so when I got my undergraduate degree, I majored in, it's called molecular environmental biology, but basically it's biology. And I concentrated in ecology and I got a minor in forestry. And I remember, right after I came out of college, I was trying to find an environmental consulting job, but finding it very hard. It was a tough field to get into, and there's maybe like five graduates for every two jobs available. So it was extremely competitive. I had some bad experiences with interviews where you just didn't feel like you were valued. You kind of just felt like a number. Uh, but anyway, in that process of looking for a job, I went on a California Native Plant Society hike, and just to brush up on my plant ID skills. And on that hike, I met another consulting arborist named Rebecca Lotta. That and we got to talking, and she asked me if I wanted to temporarily work as her assistant while I continued to look for work. And I said, yeah, of course, have to get exposure to other fields. And temporary employee became full-time employee, and then yeah, that's basically how I got into the field.
That's
Um,
that's so great.
yeah,
It was kind of a bit of your background mixed with an organic exploration of job opportunities out there. So,
yeah.
had you had a love of trees before you got into specifically tree consulting?
I had a love for trees, but it was more a love for ecology and the relationships between different biological organisms. Hence the ecology concentration in my degree. But and in forestry, there's definitely a lot of exposure to. Sounds simplistic, just call it trees, but yeah, to trees. But I feel like forestry to arboriculture is kind of like sociology to psychology. You're not working with big populations here. You're working with a client's beloved single oak tree, and you're looking at one little branch on that tree. In forestry, you'd be looking at stand characteristics.
Right,
Um, any individual tree is not terribly valuable enough for you to spend that much time on.
right. Until we get
Yeah,
into the urban canopies where people do want
of
to
course.
pay for all of our expertise. So that's so fascinating. And it's interesting how you took it from like a more broad base of forestry into like more granular down to individual trees as a consultant and really kind of understanding things in the field of arboriculture in a more, you know, intimate and specific way. So maybe from, I imagine, tree biology to tree anatomy and the physics of trees and so on and so forth. So when you got into consulting with the various consultants that you worked with. Tell me like what would be had been a typical day for you at that time.
So in the very beginning, um, very beginning, I was just spending a lot of time tagging along with the head consulting arborist. In this case, it was Rebecca. Going with her to site visits and doing more, I guess, more clerical work, taking down notes and then transferring those into a report format. And then later on, as I learned more, I started doing more protected tree reports. So that's doing tree surveys, um, tree maps, and learning how to analyze construction impacts to trees, reading construction documents, talking to contractors and developers, and the most fun part, I say this a little sarcastically, was doing construction monitoring with contractors who sometimes they're very cooperative, sometimes they I'd say less cooperative,
Right.
but it was good learning experience, both in this learning about how to actual knowing what to look out for and procedures to go through, but also just learning to toughen up a bit and telling people, hey, you can't do this, or you really have to do it this way. No, you can't compromise with that,
Right.
which has been very useful, even in many other contexts of the job as well.
Right. I would agree that a lot of times you're the thing between the tree and the ordinance and the owner, you're like the epicenter where you're having to navigate all of these individual goals, whether the city or the municipality, the developer, the contractor, the owner, and the tree, and finding that compromise. And I found sometimes it involves asking questions, getting involved in the beginning phase of the site plan, where they're maybe possibly discussing foundations and footings and other methodologies that might allow you to get closer or less impact or further away. Or so I'm sure you were learning that as you were going along and learning all these various strategies you might pull from your toolbox to say, have you thought of this? Or have you thought of that? And knowing when to let it go and when to be firm,
Yeah.
about setbacks. So that's good. And I think as a consultant, that's a skill. Wouldn't you agree that that's a skill that you have to build time and time again after each experience builds upon itself?
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing what to bring up, what strategies work, knowing when you just don't have enough information and when you might need to do exploratory trenching. Also, just knowing all the kind of unknowns involved in construction. So someone might say, "Oh, we're just gonna put in a new driveway. It's gonna be the same finish grade." And it's like, okay, yeah, but how thick is that driveway? What's the subgrade going to be? What's every little detail
Right.
involved in it? Because you can still cut all the roots even if the grade hasn't changed. Yeah, just knowing all those little things. Also, kind of bane of my existence sometimes is utility trenching, because a lot of times clients don't know about it until later on in the process, and
Yeah.
you don't want to spend all this time protecting these trees and come back and see this trench going through
Right.
root zone.
Unilateral cutting, and when they could have tunneled and you could have just, permanent cut for a
Yeah.
temporary, access. I know. Isn't it interesting? It's like, but every time you have that experience, you learn the next time to ask so many detailed questions and you get really into it, like every impact that can potentially be experienced by that tree. So it's great. You're definitely hitting the ground running. And what part of the job do you think is like to you like the most rewarding or fun things that you enjoy the most as a consultant? Because this is a unique path, and I always think that consultants are a unique breed, and so um, and it's fun out there. I find it that's really enjoyable. It's fun. I like the collaboration with all these various players. And what do you enjoy out there?
I say one of the things I enjoy most is when the client is very receptive to the things I'm telling them, and and I'm just standing there educating them about trees, how to take care of them, how to manage them, and the client, you know, seems really happy that I'm there telling them all this, giving them all this information.
Yeah.
Um, especially, oh my gosh, especially when the client cares and then my recommendations are actually implemented correctly. Um, that feels amazing.
I know. It's
Uh,
like you took my advice. I made sense to you, or you really feel it's such a great, it is, it's true. I agree. You feel so good when you come back, 3, 4, 6 months later or a year later, and you see the benefits of your recommendations come to life.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
especially when like, oh, my tree looks great, and I was like, oh yes, he did what I said.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. And sometimes, often it's actually just a matter of watering the tree correctly, mulching, just pretty basic stuff.
I was going to say half the battle is just keep the roots alive.
Yeah,
Roots, you touch them, you own them. That's what I always jokingly
yeah.
say. So no, I agree. I had a client recently where they were going to do a driveway in one spot and they were going to take out an oak tree. And I just kept pushing them like, why? They had grading issues. So that was going to definitely have to be fixed and figured out. But I said, could you put the driveway over here and flip the project? And everybody was, they were not happy about it. But then I said, look, this is a nice tree. It's a beautiful oak tree. I said, you might get an approval for this, but I really don't think you need to. So then they came back and they revised the plan. And I felt so victorious, like, oh my gosh, like that's a really nice oak tree on that street. Like that's the oak tree when you come up around the corner and you see that tree and it's so pretty. And I thought it's going to frame the house when they get done. And I just thought, yay. And it's like those little victories, I think, are what we cling to, so to speak. It's like it just helps us galvanize us to not give up on helping people strategize and not to just say, oh yeah, it's in the way. It's like, no. We want to explore this more.
Yeah, and it's funny actually how I feel like there's a lot of psychology that goes into it too. Something I never realized, never thought I'd be doing when I first started this job is standing there trying to figure out how the client thinks about things. Because a lot of times the trees provide benefits that they just never really realize until you frame it in a certain way to them. Or that'd be like just I don't know. Some people just don't, they kind of get used to their settings and they don't think about what would it be like if it changed.
Yeah.
And somebody just having a client imagine if the tree wasn't there, then they realize, oh, actually, it's really valuable. For some people, it might work better to talk to them in terms of money. Like, that tree is, first of all, you're not really going to be able to buy a tree like that. And if you were, it'll be extremely expensive or, that kind of gets, so I guess there's certain moments in consultations when I see something click in the client's brain. They're like, oh, I
Yeah.
see. I
Yeah.
get it now. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's like learning how to understand. And I find oftentimes the starter way to find out where they're standing is to start asking questions, like simple ones, like tell me about your project, tell me about your goals. What are getting them talking. And so when you understand what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish, then you can help them um, understand what you want to present because the more they talk, the more they feel comfortable that you're listening, that you understand their point of view, and then you might have more ability to um, present that information and sway them to understanding the benefits. And I think I always find the key is to ask a lot of good questions. And I jokingly say to my kids, the quality of your questions is the quality of your life. And meaning like when you ask good questions, you elicit interesting responses. And it could be the civil engineer, it could be the architect, it could be anyone that's going to be part of that discussion who may come up with some creative solution. And so I've found on lots of projects where just asking a few questions got people thinking differently. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, actually, we could go around that one tree and we could put the posts out there. And yeah, oh yeah, we could do that. We didn't think it was a problem. And then I'm so excited because I just thought, had I not asked any of those questions, they would have just gone on their way and I would have gone on my way. And, we would all gone home and that would have been fine. But that poor tree is always going to be there. and or trees sometimes. So, I agree with you. It's you have to really be willing to ask the tough questions and not just and also not assume everything they tell you is factual. I found, I'm sure you've run into
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
but that's a whole nother story. So like, so you talked a little bit about your background in school and working in a big, bigger 30,000 foot level of the world of environmental sciences and then getting into consulting. So tell me now that you're really running fast and furious, you're a registered consulting arborist, you're an active.
Oh, not yet. Almost.
Oh, okay. You're almost there. It's June
Yeah.
2023. I'm sure by the time this airs, you'll be done. Anyway,
Okay.
you're working on your RCA and you're an active member in our committee and often host many of our roundtables. But tell me what you have found that you surprisingly some skills that you've been honing or things that you've been getting better and better at that you think you didn't realize were something that you wanted to refine or enhance in your skills, whether it's people or jobs or tech.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I think I'm realizing now that I really need to just get a drone, a small size drone. Just finally like, pull the plug and do that. So that's definitely something I'm exploring a bit, but I don't have too many comments about that just yet. But I'm excited to see how that goes.
What would you use a drone for besides flying it in
Aerial
the air?
inspection.
Aerial inspection. Okay. Like, give me an
Aerial
example.
inspection.
Give
Uh,
me an example though of an aerial inspection that you think that you'd need a drone for. Like, give me a scenario.
um, let's say it's a very large tree with an open canopy that can fly through, and I'm noticing certain branch that's a little bit overextended. See a little bit of some weird patterns in the bark up top, but I don't see anything particularly uh, like any real defect with my binoculars, or like a clear sign of a defect, I should say. So
Sure.
maybe I'll fly a drone up there and see if there's some damage at the top of the branch, which often there can be. Actually, a direct example of the last time I feel like I could use a drone is last week. I was doing a tree survey, actually with the help of a climber because the slope was so steep. Oh my gosh. I actually got kind of nervous walking along it. So I'm glad I had somebody there to help me. But even just then, it would have been good to have a drone just to double check on the other side of the hill, because I'm basically standing up and looking down,
Yeah.
and I'm relying on my observations and his observations. And, thankfully in this project, I was able to go around the other side from underneath to get another view. But it also would have been nice to have a drone, especially if I didn't have that option to double check my work by going,
Yeah.
but driving around to
Was
the
the
site.
climber was the climber able to gather some data for you that was
Yeah,
helpful? That's great.
yeah, yeah.
So, so had you not had the climber, a drone might have been a nice other option.
It would have been a nice other option. Unfortunately, the drone can't measure trunk diameter. Um, but it still would have been good to just to at least to know where to look. Um, yeah, so it's definitely can be useful for sites with a lot of topography, and aero inspection. And I'm sure there's some other uses for it that I haven't even thought of yet.
So that's a
Yeah.
tech skill that you're wanting to use more of, employ.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other tech skills like uh, using any type of mapping software, or are you more old school? I can be more old school on easy projects where I'm just going to map everything on paper, and then I'm going to create a digital replica of that when I'm back in the office. How about yourself?
Um, so in terms of mapping, what I generally do is record on paper and then transfer onto Adobe Illustrator, which I find to be really useful for making tree maps. I was actually thinking about eventually kind of running some sort of, it's a little off topic, maybe running a seminar or something and telling people about it, because it's, I mean, it's all electronic, so it's easy to manipulate, and it's really nice, especially I've had certain projects where, you have a site plan, maybe you have a grading plan, and then maybe you have even like a roof plan. Some, like let's say it's canopy impacts from kind of the canopy back from a roof. You want to visualize that. You want to visualize where new piles are going to be dug. Anything you can think of.
Right.
That way you can easily overlay different layers on a map with the trees, so you can kind of look at each different layers at the same time.
That's
Uh,
interesting.
Going through one by one, and also, if the client sends you a new uh, plan, and then the scales changed, and then it's rotated a little bit, it's pretty easy just to go and put the canopies that you've drawn into that. Yeah, just transfer and make new maps very easily. I don't have to go drive all the way to the store and pay money for a printout, like a large printout. They'll work on it by hand, and it's just, it's really streamlined everything.
That's
Actually, in
great.
terms of mapping, uh, I don't know. I don't feel like I have anything to really improve right now, except for maybe getting a tablet device.
Yeah.
But
I have a
yeah,
tablet and I wish I used it more consistently. And I know other consultants, they use their tablet, they download the survey and or the site plan into their, PDF expert or something, and then they can just put
yeah,
the tree numbers on each specific one. But it's it's a balance between using electronics in the field and not getting bogged down time wise. And I find that I can be faster and more efficient paper wise, and then come back and study it and be more refined back in my office. But, maybe I'm just need to practice. And I worry about sometimes, and I don't mean not worry, but I sometimes want to challenge myself and say, you should work on learning these tablet based software apps and use them in the field and see if you can improve your efficiency. You know, I know the end product looks good already. I just want to make sure that I'm not messing up the end product by trying to jam it through some electronic tablet.
yeah,
So it's always a little bit like I want to go out in the field with an easy job and try to let that be the test. And I'll say, okay, I'll try this one in the field and see if I can do this one. And then you can make it on harder projects. And I know some people use CAD in the field and or use CAD when they get back to the office. And so it'd be interesting to know, because mapping is becoming more and more commonplace, and especially with more and more cities and municipalities and counties having these ordinances, having the ability to map our trees, identify them specifically in the field if they're surveyed on there, but identifying them and then discussing the impact analysis with the client is important for us. So that mapping and the surveyor is going to place them on the map. They're the legal surveyor. I always say, I'm going to survey your trees, but the surveyor is going to place them on a map from a legal standpoint. And that legal
yeah,
standpoint means that we as arborists get context of like, oh, the house is here, the new house is here, the tree is here, that distance is X number of feet. Then we can draw some conclusions from that impact. But how do we capture that in the field? And I'd love to, on a more granular level, just day-to-day consulting, there's 5, 10, 20, 50 trees on a site. I don't need to have lots of heavy duty fancy software. I just want to have something that's functional and does the job without slowing me down, you know. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Sounds like you might be kind of similarly minded.
yeah. I mean, absolutely. I don't like doing back end work if I don't have to do it. The more streamlined I can make things without reducing the quality of my work, the better.
Yeah.
I'd much rather be out there, I don't know, with a mallet in my hand, sounding a tree, than or binoculars looking at the canopy, than typing up thoughts, transferring things from my head into written word, or this and that. I mean, that's actually why I brought up the tablet, because I saw another arborist using it, where I was like, what kind of tablet is that? She's like, oh, it's just an old iPad, but it had a nice camera on it, and she would just go and, and kind of take a picture of a branch and then draw on it saying, print it this way or do this and that.
Yeah.
Um, and then she actually just creates those reports in the field and inserts the
Yeah.
photos and sends them off. And, it's kind of, I always refer to mental real estate.
Who is that?
Uh, that was Fleur
Oh,
Nguyen.
Fleur. Oh, yeah. Fleur's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've been doing something like that for years. And what I do is I take photos and then I'll just use a pen. Everybody knows I do this, but I'll just take a pen and then in the photo, I'm taking the photo, I might go, okay, cut here, and I'm taking a photo showing exactly what branch I want cut. Or I'll do a video and I'll say, hi, here I am at the oak tree next to the fence here. And I want this branch, this elongated branch prune back to this 3-inch diameter stem, do a reduction cut here, and then that's 1 20-second video. Then I might do another one. Then I Dropbox everything and send it to the client, and then I'm done. And to your point of mental real estate, oh my gosh, you're making me think of so many other good questions. Is that like I totally agree. As much as I can get that observation and my recommendation out of my hands as fast as possible. But we have to also be thorough. So how do we do that? And this is a consulting arborist challenge every single day. How the heck do we capture the data, our observations, put it into some format that the customer, the client, the end user can use and leave nothing to be misunderstood, and then generate something that they can use. And so to me, the video is just shortens that. There's left nothing to, and I can text it to the tree contractor. I can text it to the client right there. I can walk with the tree contractor a few days before they prune. And so, but talking about your mental real estate, I think that's such a good term. And I'm sure you've grappled with that on your journey as a consultant. You come home and then you got more to type up.
Oh yeah. You do, 4 field visits the day before and you take down notes and then you go home the next day. And then, it's I mean, this actually kind of segues into motivation, especially when you work by yourself at home, nobody watching you over your shoulder. Then sometimes I find it can be a little difficult to wake up and then actually crank through all the follow up that's needed sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is why it's nice to just do it in the field, especially when you're in the car. There's no distractions. Usually, it feels like there's not too many people giving you a call. And yeah, just crank it out, send it out. Actually, a lot of times now, for certain consultations, I just dictate it into the phone when I'm walking around, and then copy and paste into an email. Look around for some editing if needed, and send it off. And okay, done. I'm done. Move on to the next thing. Don't have to worry about it anymore.
I agree. The
Gosh, it
more,
feels so good to do that. Yeah.
yeah, when you talk about motivation, I'm in the same boat because I'd get back early in my years of consulting and I'd be like, I gotta sit down. I gotta write them the notes. And it's just like it weighs on you and you just want to get it done. And they only paid you a certain amount. So you got to get it done within that time frame, or otherwise you're going to be eating it. And the more streamlined and more we can just make it easy and just get it done, I feel like the better off we're going to be as consultants and using our tools to help us, like dictating. I'm a big advocate of like I use notes on my phone and I dictate stuff all the time. And there was a woman that spoke at a conference like 4 or 5 years ago, and she told us about an app called Otter, Otter, and that one is genius. And it will take your entire calendar and it puts your calendar in there and it dictates all of your. Not only does it dictate, record the auditory conversation, but it transcribes the entire meeting. So like I can have a meeting and it's transcribed all of my observations and recommendations. And it allows me to be organically thinking. I can talk, I can say, I'm oak number 3, I know such and such. And then I can just export it as a Word doc, and just pull out whatever I want, or I can reference back to it. So I think you're onto it, but I would say any consultant, I recommend you find ways to capture your thoughts dictate your thoughts, because what you see, and when you talk, it'll kickstart your notes. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. So speaking of motivation, what are your tricks and tips to stay motivated? Or do you not stay motivated? No, no, I'm just, I know you got a pile that high. It's like,
um I think it's a couple parts to that. So one is to recognize that sometimes on those really hard days, sometimes it's okay to not be as motivated. And also to find out um, when you're most motivated. So, there are some days where, especially working from home, have a busy morning, have a big lunch,
yeah,
and I sit down, and oh my gosh, it's so hard to, write this report or review this report.
yeah,
And then come 8 p.m., all of a sudden, I'm super motivated. It's so easy to write.
yeah,
So sometimes I feel like sometimes it's about kind of moving with the natural flow of, I guess, your energy.
yeah,
Um,
biorhythms.
yeah, exactly. So that can help. Of course, if you have a family, it can get a little complicated. But
Yeah.
also setting deadlines for yourself.
How about a
Giving
calendar?
expectations to the client. Yeah, a calendar. Yeah, and also not overloading yourself is really important. I used to say yes to clients way too often and way too easily, and I've learned over time that generally speaking, a lot of things, with a few exceptions, can wait if you need to. Especially with development projects, there's a lot of what do you call it, like rush and wait.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But
Yes.
like we need it. Can we get it next week? It's like, can you do like 3 weeks from now? And they're like, okay. And usually the municipalities take maybe months to get back to them anyway. So
Yeah.
that's a whole different thing. But yeah, not rushing, not overloading yourself, and scheduling time to work on certain reports, scheduling office days, making sure you don't do too much field work in a week if you can manage it. And also, I was about to say something related to that.
Clients and say no, and sometimes not.
Yeah.
Is that part of it?
Sorry, I just kind of
I know.
lost my thought.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Schedule
just making.
time.
Oh, actually, I remember it. So today is a good example of this. I think I was telling you before, we started recording, but I woke up today. I had a few, and it's a Monday, so it's even a little bit more difficult. But I had the list of things I wanted to accomplish today, and I got through about maybe 2/3 of it, which is still like decent, but I thought I could easily do the rest of it. And it's because, after I started working, the phone started ringing and it didn't stop ringing. And, sometimes one thing I think I might try more of is kind of just putting the phone on silent and putting it in the other room and just focusing on what I'm doing, because, I'm writing a report and then I got a phone call. Okay. So then, well, I got to write them a proposal. I just do it now just because it's fresh in my mind. I don't want to forget about it. And then, oh, I didn't do that thing. And then I go through my email to send to them. And then I see my email, a new email. I was like, ooh, okay, I'll look at that. Oh, I'll respond to that. And by the time I realize what's going on, it's been 2 hours and haven't gotten to the report. I've still been working, I guess, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It would
I,
have been better for my goals, I think, if I concentrated a lot of the communication to certain smaller periods of time, or try to do what I can while I'm driving to, hit two birds
right.
with one stone. So
And it is one of those evolutions where we carve out time in the office, but knowing like a Monday, it's always going to be busy, or a Monday after a holiday or something, or knowing that we have a report due by Tuesday. Like I had a couple of reports due tomorrow, and I had the same Monday. My phone was ringing, and I'm trying to help people out and answer questions, and then also field new assignments. And I know it's a constant battle between when you're running a business, you're doing everything. So you're answering the phones, you're sending out proposals, you're doing the work, you're out in the field, you're coming back in, and then you're invoicing. So it's this whole, conveyor belt of a client relationship. And some are at this end, some are at this end, and all day long they're at different phases of that relationship. And it's a lot. We're playing whack-a-mole all day long. And little things that I do is I have this, and not to digress from your conversation, and I feel like we could go on and on here, but
Oh gosh, yeah.
for crazy thoughts and but good thoughts, is that I, as a consultant, I always say, be like a restaurant. And when a customer comes into the restaurant, you're greeting them, you're making them feel good. They're coming in, they're going to sit down, you put them at a nice table, you give them menus, and then what do you do next? You give them some water, and then they might drink some water, and then you give them some like chips or some bread. And so then they're going to maybe, and you're like, oh, I don't have time to get to them yet, take their order yet, because we were slammed in the kitchen, da, da, da. And then you say, could we get you some drinks started? And then maybe you get some drinks. So you're constantly doing this thing I call putting food on the table. So when you have a client and you're busy and you've got them in the queue, but they're back here and you're working on this and you're going to get to them eventually, you just know that they need to get used to this long journey with you. And that as long as you keep putting food on the table, and that food on the table might be as simple as, can you send me your survey and site plan? Oh, I reviewed it. I had some questions. Could we talk on Tuesday? Great. I'm glad we had this review. I think this is how we should coordinate this report. Or great, you have a defect. Oh, you're afraid your tree's going to fall over. Can you send me some photos? Oh, I can't get them till tomorrow. Well, then they're not really that worried if it's tomorrow. So all of these various methodologies of putting food on their table for them to digest, and then you can take a pulse and go back to them and go, okay, I got your photos. Now I can see that looks typical. That does not look like it's imminently failing. What is your goal for the removal? Why do you need it? So then you're constantly, it's a little bit of an annoying back and forth, but it makes the customer feel cared for. And it makes them feel like you're in it with them. And some of them is a very short timeline and some is long, but as long as you always take that adage of put food on the table. Like I went out to a site meeting on last Friday and I looked at the site and I got back with them. I said, hey, I looked at the site, I looked at everything. When you have a chance this week, give me a call. I want to talk to you. They're like, oh, and I'm like, done. I don't need to talk to that person for another 3 or 4 days. And then I'm already putting my little map together and I've got some comments, and then I'm going to send that over and I'm going to, could you please review this? Because I have some questions on this. Done. So then I'm just continually putting food on the table to keep them feeling like the plates are spinning, an appetizer is coming out, then the main entree, then maybe a dessert menu, maybe the dessert, maybe an after dinner drink. It's like you're continually bringing them something to digest. And that's how I've always run my business. And it lets people feel good because they feel like, and also when you get an email, respond back as fast as possible, because unfortunately that's the name of the game today, that people want a response that day. If you can't respond, just put some food on the table and say, hey, I'm out of the field today, but I'm going to respond. Please nudge me if you don't hear back within 2 days. That's all they want, is just acknowledgement. So to your point, I totally agree. We are all like spinning plates and playing whack-a-mole daily. Um, but it's better than the alternative. And so kudos to you, because you're already, you hit the ground running, Jonathan, and I applaud that. And I'm so happy. I mean, just Southern California, the state of California has 40 million people. The whole Western chapter, in the world of ISA, there's like 25,000 arborists in the whole world. Just the Western chapter is 4,000 of those in the 4 states. But Southern California, we have a lot of people. And so consultants need to realize there is going to be a lot of work coming down the pipeline. And the faster you can learn some skills and hit the ground running, the better you can manage your business. And Jonathan, you've done such a nice job. You already, out there and helping people both from a science side, construction side, logistics and strategies, and blending that all with a nice demeanor, and making people feel like they're heard, and I think that's really important. That's all clients want. And so I'm sure I had other questions for you, but I was going to ask you, what other skills do you think are helpful for all consultants besides the ones we've talked about? What other skills do you think all consultants should work on, or just remember that it's important that they have those skills? What do you recommend?
Um, First and foremost, this might, I mean, it might be a surprise, might not be a surprise. Computer skills, as with any job, are really useful.
Computer
Um,
skills. Yeah.
yeah, the more you can automate, the less busy work you're doing. Like, yeah, being organized also helps a lot. And I understand, some people aren't, they might not think of themselves as being organized. Sometimes I feel like I'm organized. Sometimes I wish I was more organized. But I am realizing how much of organization is really just the habits that you develop. Good habit. With good habits, you don't. It's a habit. You don't have to think about it as much. It doesn't take as much kind of activation energy to do, because
Right.
it's just automatic. And if you're doing things correctly, I don't know, that reduce your disorganization, I guess. It just makes your business better, well run. Your clients appreciate you more. You're able to do more useful work,
Yeah.
and you just waste less time doing stuff you don't like to do. For even a small example I can give is just asking for a payment before you give a client a report. For some clients that we've had for a while or that we trust a lot, we might just give them our product and say, yeah, here's the invoice, pay us, in a month or whatever. But for new clients, no, I don't think anyone, or maybe there's somebody out there that likes this, but I don't think any arborists like chasing
Yeah.
clients down for payment.
No.
I'm uncomfortable doing it. I don't, yeah, I don't like bringing up the collections word when it gets really bad. It's just such a waste of time and energy.
It is.
Been so much better just to be like, well, you're not gonna, you need to pay us first before you get it. There's something there's a bigger incentive for them to pay us.
Yes.
And I mean, I've yeah,
I
there's
believe
a
the organization thing, it's really key because it plays into everything, whether it's your field time, your calendar time, your notes, your invoicing, everything. The organization is so key. And not to
yeah.
get in the weeds right now, but give me like a highlight of something that would give me an example of how you organize. Like I have a project list and I have a spreadsheet that has every project on it, and it's when the proposal was sent, when the retainer was sent, progress payments, things like that. So I can keep track of all of them and then delete them off the project list as various components are completed. What are some ways that you keep organized?
um so for office days, sometimes I'll actually write down what I'm trying to complete and the estimated time I think it needs to complete it, just to set my expectations more realistically.
That's a good idea.
uh yeah, I have a digital task list that I regularly update. And that lists tasks. Sometimes I put in the estimated time I think it'll take, and also deadlines, so that I can prioritize tasks more easily. It's also a lot easier to, I mean, I've definitely had days where I'm like, I just wake up, I'm like, okay, let me think about what I need to work on today and write them down and post it. It's not
Yeah.
necessary. It's a kind of waste of mental energy at the very beginning of the day. It's much easier
You're
just to have
planning.
what,
Yeah, you're
yeah,
planning though, but I know what you
yeah,
mean.
yeah.
You're just kind of
But
winging. Yeah,
yeah, it's like nicer when you have it written down, and for sure, and also just so you don't miss things.
definitely.
I don't, I really don't like it when a client's like, hey, you said you're gonna send me proposals. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't, usually because I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
I didn't
It's
do,
that's
yeah,
such a good point. Yeah, that we get so many emails, it's just managing those emails is half the battle. And
yeah.
um I think that's so true. I know I put every single one I think a client is going to move forward. I'll put it on my calendar. And it might be like today's Monday, I might put it on the calendar for Thursday or next Thursday. So then if I see it on the calendar, it prompts me like, oh, I had that on the calendar to visit and we didn't reconnect. So I might check in with them. So every single thing goes on my calendar. I have a calendar that um, is pretty busy. So I'm blocking out that time, but I like your idea of really sitting down and putting the amount of time you think something's going to take so you're realistic and not overbooking and overestimating, how much you can get done, be more realistic with it. Um, and so I like that. I think that's a good, but I agree the organization part is key. And for me, because I kind of run fast and furious.
I have
Go
one
ahead.
more thing to add to it, just so that I hope people don't get the impression that being an arborist is all just about being organized and the kind of back end business part of things. But another very useful skill to have is also just knowing your botany, knowing plant physiology, knowing the scientific background, and also even just knowing the scientific method and how to read scientific papers can be very important for the conceptual background, especially for diagnostics. Um, uh, yeah, knowing the different parts of a plant and how they function are really important for knowing how treatments work and if they even make sense for some of them to work. If there's evidence that certain things work, how disease spreads, all the instead of just like well instead of just kind of knowing these random facts, which it seems like I feel like I hear that sometimes where people just like, no, this causes this causes this. They don't know the background theory of how it all works together.
Right.
So I think that's really important.
And
Even I mean, yeah,
the plug
sorry.
for the new book coming out by the Western chapter and the Britain Fund is the Botany for Arborists. So that will be coming out in 2023. So pick that up, and that will help you
Yeah,
if that is a skill you need to work on. So people out there,
yeah.
yeah,
And,
that's
and
the
speaking
point.
of and speaking of skills and you know, uh, basically finding out things that you don't know about. I feel like I get the feeling from a lot of people, especially younger people, that when they don't know something, they'll do a bit of research on their own, but they seem to be kind of afraid to reach out to other people. And I was definitely shy about that too in the beginning, but I found that it's oh my god, it's amazing. It's really nice to not really nice, but it's very useful in so many ways to reach out to others when you don't know something. To just call another arborist that you think might know, call someone else in the industry, someone outside the industry. And
Yeah.
at first I used to think I was bothering. I don't want to bother people. I don't know. They might think I'm dumb for not knowing this or that, but it's been the opposite. People are generally very, very happy to. I mean, it's flattering to be asked for advice, to feel
Yeah.
like, oh, somebody thinks I know enough about something to ask me about it. And also, it's not just good for your own learning experience, learning from somebody who's has a lot of experience in the question that you're asking, but also it creates connections with people. And now maybe they'll ask you for something.
Yep.
uh Maybe they refer you to something, or even very worst that you have someone to talk to about, might make a friend, might make a acquaintance. I don't know, it
I
just makes it makes this often very solitary job a bit more social and
I
more enjoyable.
I think you hit the nail on the head. And that's
Yeah,
what our committee is all about is connecting and sharing and comparing and getting to hear other people's takes on things. And we all, like you said, we're all solitary as consultants and we're all, as I jokingly say, reinventing the wheel every day. And so the more we can share what we do and open source to a certain degree, it helps each other. Rising tides lift all boats. And then the benefit is that the trees are improved in their care, hopefully. And but I think you're right. I think those are all different skills. Yeah, phone a friend, reach out, um, ask for uh, ask a question. And I agree with you. People are honored and impressed when you say, "Hey, I wanted to get your opinion on something." And especially when you say that phrase, "What do you think about?" and then you open up the question, everybody wants to tell you what they think about something. So and then like you said, it's an opportunity to make a new friend in the business, and it makes it more fun, when we go to conferences or regional conferences or seminars, and then we grow our knowledge. And I know I've reached out over my years to people I hadn't thought about reaching out to, and I thought, they're going to just tell me all the same stuff. And then I got one little tidbit of something, and I'm like, that was gold information. And it was so interesting to me. And I thought, would not have thought about that, would not have picked up on that. And so you never know what everybody else knows. And so having that communication line, I have a few group texts with some old arborist friends of mine, and we'll put photos on and talk about stuff and share articles, and it really makes it fun. And we have a laugh about some crazy stuff too. So it's a mix of science and business and good old fashioned just friendship. And so that's so great. So speaking of, my final question for you, just to bring in the Western chapter, is what has your membership meant to you? Like, I know you're becoming more and more active, and I just enjoy seeing that as the past president of the Western chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture. I love encouraging younger people to get involved. And so it's been great to get to know you through our committee.
Yeah. I'd say, in the very beginning, the Western chapter is just a good way to get in the very beginning, a good way to get the magazine, which is quite nice, a lot of good information there, and also to get discounts for seminars, because everyone needs CEUs.
Yeah.
Um, but over time, even going to the seminars, meeting people, I guess memberships become more and more about networking for me. Um, and slow, from just getting information and CUs to networking, and then through networking, kind of, I've had people. The reason I joined the consulting committee is because somebody said, "Hey, you might want to check this out." I was like, "All right, sounds fun. I'll see what happens. I don't know how much I'll contribute to it." Uh, but once I join, I learned there are things that I want to spread. There are things I want to work on, and try to improve the community. So I guess that's what it's kind of given me, is I guess now, like more of a sense of purpose of, I guess, stewardship. I don't know if stewardship's the right word, but
No, that is.
yeah.
I think so. Stewardship and fostering that growth. And no, I think that's great. And I think it's true that a lot of people, they join for different reasons, and it evolves over time. And also sometimes it reveals itself in ways that you would not have anticipated. And I know for me, because I joined many, many years ago, and and I think I was a little shy in the beginning to reach out, and I'd see people at conferences and seminars, and just thought, oh well, I'll see my same friends, and I'd see someone over there, and you just stay with your group of people. But now that I'm older, I'm always introducing people and trying to connect, and I love being a connector. And I think that if you're newer to the Western chapter and you don't know people, lean on those people who do know others and ask them to introduce you around. And I think that the Western chapter is the best chapter in the world, um, for many, many reasons. I mean, the science, the books, the seminars, the conferences, the people, the level of opportunities. We have the greatest diversity of trees anywhere in the world, in California and in the Western chapter, Hawaii, Nevada, Arizona. And that really fosters some fun projects and things that we get to do. So, so I was gonna, I shouldn't have rambled on here. I should have let you wrap it up. But so, anything else you want to tell people as far as being a consultant, as far as like a specific example? What in the last year or last couple of years as a consultant has been um, rewarding to you?
In the last year, a couple years, I'd say the most rewarding thing has been, I mean, and it's real. I'm not what do you call it, sugarcoating things. That's not, well, that
No,
kind of
no, it could
phrase.
be.
Is honestly just working with the Western chapter, be on the consultant committee. It's June right now, so almost exactly a month ago was the last annual Western chapter conference. I remember before I went, I wasn't actually necessarily planning on going before, and I was like, I don't know, I have to take a week off work, it's travel expenses,
Yeah.
this and that. I was like, I don't know, but then I was like, okay, I'll go, and I was so glad I did. I made so many connections, and now I'm even on, yeah, I'm talking
Other
with some other people about other opportunities and this and that. There's just
brewing.
so many nice things that happened. Yeah, just because I decided to go and see old friends and make new ones, and also meet some people in person for the first time. Yeah, it was great. Um,
I know I
yeah,
saw you there, and I don't think we've seen each other in person in a long time.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so that's so great. I know, showing up is half the battle. So, 90%. So that's great. I'm so glad to hear that. So, well, Jonathan, I have to tell you, thank you so much for being willing to be interviewed and tell about your journey, which is really just kind of beginning. I mean, but the fun thing I will tell you as a older consultant is that the journey is never boring. It's every day is interesting, exciting, and it's just such a wonderful career. And I encourage people, if they want to get into consulting, is to reach out to anybody in the committee. And so I thank you for being our first interviewee and allowing people to understand more about what you do and get people excited about the industry. Maybe when people run into us, they'll say hi to us. So
Yeah, please say hi to me. I mean,
I,
like I'm always happy to talk.
I know exactly. Okay. Well, thank you again, Jonathan. And you have a great night, and we'll see everyone soon.
Yeah, see ya.
Take care.